Okay, today's our last time with Halacha Aleph, Simcha Chokim Halacha Aleph. It's really, in a sense, a continuation from last time. So I'm going to tell you review of a few points that came up last time that are going to be negated to this time. Okay, the Mishnah says that Stam Yain is Asabana, but a Gemara far away says that someone who's a guy who's not over Avodah Zarah. The Gemara's example of that is a ger toshav, but as we said, the place we say it does not have anything to do with a ger toshav, not the formalities of a ger toshav. Someone who's not over Avodah Zarah, such as Stam, a guy who's not over Avodah Zarah, or a Muslim who's not over Avodah Zarah. That's an example that's brought in Ramam and Rishonim. So that person, it only makes it asur b'chila, not asur b'hana. That Gemara that said that it only makes it asur b'chila for a guy who's not over Avodah Zarah, for the ger toshav. Most Rishonim hold that applies whether it's the guy's wine or the guy touches my wine, but the Rosh holds that it's only when the guy owns the wine. If the guy touches my wine, then it's not even asur b'chila at all. Okay, and the Mechaber passes like most Rishonim l'chumra, and the Ramah Segesh Mekilim like the Rosh. Okay, so now let's go to our question for today. The Shulchan Aruch says, not in our siman, in the next siman, the Shulchan Aruch says that if a mumar touches wine, then he makes the wine assur. Okay, I just put in the words that are relevant. Mumar oisei yain nesach b'magoy. Okay, if a mumar, you don't need all the rest of the words of the din if you want. That's all, So, whether he has mila, it's a whole kinds, whatever it's not important. So the Shulchan Aruch says that if a mumar touches wine, he makes it assur, and that's fine. That's understandable. Okay, at its basic, most simple level, a mumar means someone who's over Avodah Zarah. He stopped doing mitzvahs and he started being over Avodah Zarah. If he touches wine, then his wine is assur. Okay, that's straightforward enough. Okay, now we're in Siman Kuf Chav Daled of Yerdeh. Okay, in Siman Beis of Yerdeh, it brings what the Gemara says. All kinds of people. It's all the dinim of who's kosher for shechita and who's not kosher for shechita, and there a guy is not kosher for shechita, and it tells you all kinds of people who have the same din as if they're a guy. So one of those people is a mumar. A mumar is not kosher for shechita, and it said a mumar, all different types of mumar. Mechallelei Shabbos for hesya, dinan kachkacham. Okay, so one of the examples of a person who has those dinim in Siman Beis of Yerdeh, in Siman Beis of Yerdeh, of all the people who have these kind of dinim, includes mumar Mechallelei Shabbos for hesya. Okay, so the question is that we're going to talk about is, okay, in Siman Beis, it said that a mumar Mechallelei Shabbos for hesya, a person who's Mechallelei Shabbos for hesya is dinan kachkacham, and he has the din of a mumar for the din in Siman Beis. What about for the din in our siman, or what we call Siman Kuf Chav Daled, where it just says a mumar oisei yain nesach b'magoy? Does it include all those people who are listed in Siman Beis? What should be not? What should be the reason why not? So the reason to be not is because if the main reason why, I'm going to say in short for now, we'll say more in a second. If the main reason why wine that a guy touched is assur is because of chasnas, well, there's no issur chasnas for the Mechallelei Shabbos because his family is Jewish. Okay, his family is Jewish. He can marry his daughter. So should we say that maybe for our dinim, which have nothing to do with technical status, it has to do with chasnas, maybe it should be not negate us. Okay.
So it doesn't say mechallel.
I don't remember if you used that word. I think that if I didn't put that at the end of the halacha, but I don't remember. Okay, I don't remember if it's it. Okay. So before I tell you a little more details about that shaila and how Price could talk about it, I need to tell you two pieces of information. Okay, about knowing who is considered a Mechallelei Shabbos. Okay. The first is there's a lot of talk. It's going to be coming from what we say later. The easiest way to see what I'm about to say is in Mishnah Berurah in Hilchos Eruvin. Okay, in Hilchos Eruvin, a person who's a guy or a mumar affects how you make an eruv chatzeris. Okay, not so important as the details of it, but over there, the Mishnah Berurah, the Shulchan Aruch talks about a mumar Mechallelei Shabbos and different kinds of mumrim, and the Mishnah Berurah tells you, he summarizes what all kinds of poskim say in Yerdeh, which is in order to be mumar Mechallelei Shabbos, you have to do it before hesya. Has to be done in public. In public means in front of 10 yidden, or it means in a way that you know everyone's going to find out what you did. Even if there are only 3 people there, but you're going to know everyone's going to find out what you did. He talks about whether it has to be an Issa D'Oraisa, or Mechallelei Shabbos and Issa D'Oraisa and Issa D'Rabbanan. And he also says that he also says that what happens if the person would be mechallel Shabbos b'farhesia, but were he to be in front of a rabbi, he wouldn't do it. An Adam Gadol, if he'd be in front of Adam Gadol, he wouldn't do it. That's not a mechallel Shabbos. Okay, so like when I was a kid, every Shabbos he was going from shul, and the Jew who lived next door to us, Tutsi, would roll out from under his car and say, "Good Shabbos, Rabbi." Okay, he was totally not embarrassed to repair his car every Shabbos in front of the rabbi. Okay, so he was doing impressive. But what happens if he would be embarrassed, if he wouldn't do that, and when the rabbi would show up, he'd run back inside? So then, even though he does it in public, that's considered mechallel Shabbos. Okay, and Schachter's explanation for a lot of these pratim, and even Bechal, why we pick on mechallel Shabbos, is because it's a person who chooses to be mechallel Shabbos for Farhesia is like separating himself from the whole kehillah. He's like not part of the social norms. He doesn't care about what anybody else thinks, so to speak, because it was so unusual for a yid to be mechallel Shabbos that if he's willing to do that, he totally pays no attention, and he could, so to speak, do anything. Okay, he would do nothing. I don't mean anything really. I mean anything religiously. Nothing bothers him, and he's not taken aback by other people seeing him or doing it. He's free. He does whatever he wants. Okay, so that's one group of things that we need to know about mechallel Shabbos. The second is that you may remember, or maybe you remember reading it in the Sefer on Bishlakim, remember from the Shiurim back then, that there's a shayla in Poskim about whether nowadays the people who are mechallel Shabbos, even if it's in mechallel Shabbos for Hesh, like the Mishnah said, whether they qualify that, or we should maybe consider them to be a tinnik shnishba. So we maybe say that these people are not malicious, they're not out to not do the din, they don't know anything, they grew up like that, they don't know anything. Okay, so we spoke about it then, which would, now, if it's true that person is not considered mechallel Shabbos because he doesn't know better, okay, if there's such an idea to consider him like that, then most of our mechallel Shabbos are not going to qualify. Most of the people who we know who are mechallel Shabbos won't be anything. Okay? But at the same time, when we spoke about it back then, we mentioned that even if he may not qualify as mechallel Shabbos, he wouldn't have any nemonos. You wouldn't trust him on Kashrus issues. So, like, if you had 10 workers and one of them was mechallel Shabbos and the rest of them were goyim, you wouldn't trust him to say, "I'm the one who took care of this," because he has no nemonos for Kashrus things. Even if he's not technically a mumar, he wouldn't have nemonos. So which means is that the shaila about whether mechallel Shabbos is specific to a case where it's obviously that he's the only one who could have touched it. Like, for example, you have someone who works in your house who's a not Shem Shabbos, so then the only person who could have touched it was that person. There aren't any going around. It's not a matter of trust. If they did it, if they touched it, then it's them who did it. Or you have someone at your Shabbos table. You have someone at your Shabbos table who comes over. You should mention you have someone at your Shabbos table. So if that person touched it, now we have a shaila. Should we treat that person as a mechallel Shabbos who touched it or not? If we had a factory situation where there were 10 goyim and one mechallel Shabbos, it wouldn't be together. The shaila would be obvious that we would assume the one is assur because although other people might have touched it, and he has no nemonos to sort of control it.
Part of his nemonos?
No, but because there's a child nemonos, therefore, if it was a question, if he was there with people who were goyim, then the one would be assur no matter what. We have to assume the one is assur.
Check the video.
Okay, that's true. But if it's the shaila, you should give me another example. Yeah. The shaila is going to only be for the mechallel Shabbos when it's a limited situation. It's only the only person who could have touched it who was not Shem Shabbos was him. That was only that.
Will the concern be his chasnas, or what's the concern?
Well, we're about to talk about the concern. But if he's ka'akel, if he din is ka'akel, then it's also you.
Absolutely.
Okay, now
because of chasnas,
I'm going down in a second. Okay, so now back to the question. Okay, a number of places can point out that a number of people point out that the real concerns of yain nesach, stein yain, don't apply for the mechallel Shabbos. Okay, as I said to you beforehand, there's no. He's not a bit of a czar. His daughter is mutter to eat. No, sorry. His daughter. That's because somebody planted something in my mind beforehand. His daughter is mutter to marry. I don't know. And to the point that I'm going to quote you in a second. I'm going to quote you in a second. A Rashba who says it's assur. I'm going to quote you in a second. But about that Rashba, the Chazon Ish says v'loy niskal m'kayri. Okay, I don't know where it comes from. Why should we think that it's assur? Now, don't get me wrong. The Chazon Ish thinks that it is assur. But I'm saying if the mechallel Shabbos touches your wine, that should be assur. I'm not. The Chazon Ish's conclusion is not like that. But I'm just saying, just from the logic of it, many people question and say, what should be the reason? Why should the Mumar Mechallelei Shabbos? Why should his stuff be assur? Okay, so now. So what is the reason? What would be the reason why it should be assur? So, like you said, and probably because you'll remember from back when we learned in Bishalakim, it was way at the beginning of it, well, you used to get that far in the book for sure, is that we'll say this time from Ramban. Okay? There's other ways, people say in different versions of the same thing. Okay? And the Ramban says like this. It's in Chulin. Okay, the one that Chulin, that Gemara is about Mumar and things like that. Who's puzzle? That's in Hilchos Shchita. We have Meshub B'chol Torah Kula Vaday Dina Kagoy B'Yayin Esachnami. Okay, so the Gemara there is talking about Shchita. Okay, that's the Gemara at the beginnings of Chulin about who's considered a Mumar, whose Shchita is kosher. He says his dinner is his Yayin is assur. Because Alpha Pisha ain't been noise of Isser Chasas Minatar, there's nothing wrong with marrying his daughter. Mikomakam Kigoy Gamarhu Ubachag Zerasam. Okay? So we write in our modern way of speaking, we might say it's like loy plug. Okay? The Chazon Ish says it a little bit differently. The Chazon Ish says it looks like a knas. Okay, once we call him Dina Ka'akim, we treat him like Ka'akim for everything, even if it's not so relevant, it's sort of like part of the sticking him into that class is to sort of knas him. The Chazon Ish's words are that we treat him like a good. Okay, the Ramban is a little bit different. The Ramban is more like a loy plug kind of a thing.
You said the list of Kashrus not Torah. Does that imply that in Rabbanan you can marry your daughter?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I
have no idea. Okay, that I can't tell you. Okay, so
the Ramban would agree that Kedusha is Kedusha. Yeah, that's not changing.
That's not our shaila. Okay, that's a different question. Yes, that's Rabbi Reese. Okay, so the it happens to be. I forgot to say, Rav Henkin has a tshuva about this shaila, but the tshuva really starts talking about whether his kedushin is a kedushin. That's the beginning of the tshuva. Rav Henkin's famous sheet about whether his kedushin is a kedushin. Then afterwards he comes to the yayin part of it also. Okay, that happens to be. But that's really not our business. That's Rabbi Reese's business. Okay, so this thing that I just told you that most of the poskim say that the Mumar Mechallelei Shabbos, his wine is assur also. A lot of people say it, but they don't say it like it's a big deal. Okay, here the Ramban is making a point out of it. Okay, this Sefer who talks about mamash and passing, and the most strongest, or the earliest makar to it is a Rashba. Okay, and a lot of people quote this Rashba. When I said to you before in the Chazon Ish said the loy, I don't know what the makar is. So that day he's talking about this Rashba. Okay, and the Rashba says that the wine of the Mumar Mechallelei Shabbos is assur also. Okay, that's what the Rashba says. Now,
not even Magoy. Not even Magoy, he just says wine.
He says his wine. Okay, so that Rashba is brought in a Beis Yosef in Siman Kuf Yates. Okay, now, if you read just the Beis Yosef, you might not know that he's quoting the Rashba. The Beis Yosef is in the middle of quoting Rashbas, a bunch of Rashbas. He says, Oy Kosav Sham, what are the words? I don't know the words. Oy Mipi Harbein Yoina. Okay? So the Oy, it's not clear what the word Oy is going on, but when the Daki Moshe in Siman Kuf Chaf Daled, if I remember this, quotes this Beis Yosef, he says the Beis Yosef writes this thing from the Rashba, and it is from a Rashba, so he needs a Rashba. And it's in Kutz Ketzev also, in Siman, also Kuf Chaf Daled, I think. In Kuf Chaf Daled. Yeah, in Kuf Chaf Daled. Okay, it's in Kuf Chaf Daled also. Okay? So all these people bring this thing down. And no one that we see is chaylik. I told you, the Chazon Ish questions it. Lots of people question it, why should it be? But no one's chaylik. Until we come to a really, surprising tshuva in Ramosha. Okay? He mentioned it before, a very surprising tshuva in Ramosha. That, Ramosha says like this. Okay? Before I tell you what Ramosha says. Okay? The tshuva that I'm about to say from Ramosha is so surprising. Okay, so surprising. Well, to me, to many people, it's very surprising that this is one of the Jews that they pick up to show and say, you see, the later volumes of Igros Moshe weren't written by Moshe. Okay, they use this as an example. They said, there's no way he could have written such a thing. No way Moshe would have written such a tshuva, because what you're about to hear is so surprising. You're so surprised to hear what he says that he couldn't have written it. Okay, so I myself, I didn't know people thought about that until I answered Moshe Kaufman. Okay, he's a great grandson, whatever it is, and he's well aware that people think this tshuva. So he said to me, well, I'll tell you that. Guess what? This tshuva was actually printed in Amateur while Moshe was still alive. Okay, I don't know if you could see the date yet. Toshav Mem Dalet, Toshav Dalet Mem, it says on the thing. He was printed when Moshe was still alive. Okay, this tshuva was still printed. He says, and if you want, here's a handwritten copy of the tshuva from Moshe. Okay, so here it is. So if you think you didn't write it, now I don't know how many. I don't know how many people could read Ramesh's handwriting, but if you see it compared to the actual thing that he wrote, then you can see that he wrote the tshuva. So now, in the printed version, it has big letters and little letters with the added things in, but they're very clear about what they added in. But there is a tshuva, okay? So what does Ramesh say? What does Ramesh say? What does Ramesh say? Ramesh says like this. He says, isn't it interesting that the Beis Yosef only brings it in the Beis Yosef, but not in the Shulchan Aruch? And the Nekudas HaKesef only brings it in the Nekudas HaKesef, but not in the Shach? He says, because they don't paskin like that. He says, if they really held like that was the din, then he would have brought in the Shulchan Aruch. How come they not brought in the Beis Yosef? How come they would brought in the Nekudas HaKesef? And so, he says, no, it's not the din. It's really, the wine of a Mumar Mechallelei Shabbos is really mutter. It's really mutter. He says, if the minute is to not do it, he says, but really the thing is completely mutter. Okay? So it's like what the Rashba doesn't make a big deal about it, and the Beis Yosef, none of these people make a big deal about it.
Do we know for sure Shulchan Aruch was written after Beis Yosef?
Yes.
It's a question. It's a shayla.
Okay. Maybe it's a Shaila Sechemet, but everybody else thinks that it was, because the Beis Yosef says it's a kitzer. He says it's a short version of the sefer.
There are hundreds of things that the Beis Yosef brings Beis Yosef and doesn't bring Shulchan Aruch.
And here it's not like it's a big deal in the Beis Yosef. It's not like what the Beis Yosef was saying was like a big deal. Was like you have to declare should it be mutter assur? So then you think maybe the Shulchan Aruch wouldn't have. He didn't mention what you could see something from that. You could see something from that. He says it's not. He says.
I retract.
Correct. Okay. He said so. He said it's not like it was a big deal in any of these poskim. It's like Moshe passing that the stuff is assur. Okay, but that's what Moshe says. Moshe says in the Indian a question that people have mentioned before, which was the shaila was Moshe said, can you give wine to the Mumar Mechallelei Shabbos? The meaning is if he touches if his wine is assur, but if I give it to him, I'm feeding him treif because as soon as he takes the wine, now it's treif. So maybe I shouldn't give it to him. So Moshe says, the minute doesn't go so far. Now, everybody else would say, I don't know whether he can give it to him or not, but they would say it would be assur also. He says, the minute doesn't go so far. So, what? That's a question whether he asks his own wine. You'll show it to me. Okay, you'll show it to me. Okay, you send me the video, whether he asks his own wine. Whether he asks his own wine. Okay, you show me. I believe you. But Ramesh, but the tshuva is so surprising to people because Ramesh says in the Beis Yosef, it doesn't mean anything. Loads of Achronim say all kinds of people bring things. Anyway, that's what Ramesh says. Now, so what's the real, if I could use the word answer? Why? So Ramesh says is how come in Shulchan Aruch it doesn't say that? Okay, so to me, the answer to the question is why is it not? Why is it not in Shulchan Aruch Siman Kuf Chaf Daled? So to me, the answer is because Siman Kuf Chaf Daled is 123 simanim after Siman Beis. Okay, in Siman Beis, it tells you all the details of what it takes to be a mumar. It's a whole siman full of what it takes to be a mumar. Okay, so in Siman Kuf Chaf Daled, it just says a mumar makes wine assur b'magoy. Okay, so it didn't tell you all the details from Siman Beis. There's a whole lot of people in Siman Beis that are considered mumar. That's the second siman in Yordeh. So now in Siman Kuf Chaf Daled, he gives you just the short version. Okay, he just says to you the din is a mumar. Okay, I don't know if you would say that if you didn't know that all the Rishonim say that. But after you know that the Rashba and the Ramban and everybody else says it without that we know of a chaylet, so then in Siman Kuf Chaf Daled, that's just the short version. It's a short. That's the kitzur, the Shulchan Aruch. So he says the mumar. He doesn't have to repeat everything from Siman Kuf Chaf Daled. That's what I would think. Okay, now, so that's where we stand on that chaylet. We assume that if a person really is Mumar Mechallelei Shabbos, then he's considered a mumar and the wine is assur. Except for this Ramesh who says it's only a minute. Even he says it's assur. He just says it's a minute to assur, not now. There's still one more angle we have to consider, and that is like this. Chazon Ish says, what's obvious, I'm quoting from the Chazon Ish because it feels good to attach it to a name, but it's obvious. Okay, it's obvious that every person who's a Mechallel Shabbos qualifies. Almost everybody who's a Mechallel Shabbos qualifies as a ger toshav. Huh? Remember, I told you, a ger toshav doesn't mean he went to Bez and is makabel shev mitzvah b'nerch. Okay? No, that's not what it means. It means it's a guy who doesn't do avodah zarah. Okay? So most people who are Mechallel Shabbos didn't become some other religion. They didn't become Hindu and start doing avodah zarah. Most of them are nothing. They don't do anything. Okay? So they're not avodah zarah. So those people who are Mumar Mechallel Shabbos are not just plain old Dikachim. They're dina kavod in a certain sense, But the deal like for our purposes, we would call him a ger toshav. Okay, he's not different than the ger toshav who's a real guy. He was a born and bred guy, but he's just not able to, and he has different dinim. Okay, and the din for that person is his food is assur b'achila, his wine is assur b'achila, but not assur b'hana. So now comes along Rav Osman and says like this. He says, you remember that Gemara that says that a ger toshav is his food is assur b'achila but mutar b'hana? But the Rosh says that even mutar b'achila, that Gemara is only talking about his own wine. But if he touches my wine, the Rosh says it's even mutar b'achila. He says, look at the Ramah. The Ramah brings v'yesh mechallel that the ger toshav's wine, the ger toshav who touches my wine, is not even assur b'achila. You could actually eat that wine. So he says, this Mechallelei Shabbos, let's say he's a real Mechallelei Shabbos, a good old-fashioned Mechallelei Shabbos. What did the Ramah say? If that person touches my wine, the Ramah says, the Ramah doesn't say we do it. The Ramah says yesh mechallel to say that if you touch my wine, then the wine is mutar. Okay, mutar even b'achila. So now Rav Osman brings this. He says l'char that should be true. He says he's not 100% convinced that you should say that. He says betzir of other things you could be makel. Now it so happens that we do have tziruf from over here. You have to think about it. Okay, the thing that we talked about. If you really Mechallelei Shabbos, would he do it in front of the rabbi? Would he do that? Think about the yid who's at your house for Shabbos. Would that person be Mechallelei Shabbos in front of the rabbi? Maybe. There are those who thought that those people don't even qualify as Mechallelei Shabbos because they're maybe a Tinich Nishmas. So we have other things to think about that maybe he's not a Mechallelei Shabbos. We also have to know, the Ramah himself said, V'yesh mechallel. He doesn't say yes or no. So some people, the Dr. Chu would bring from the Knesset Doyle, would say that the din is 100% like that. Din is mutar. So I went to ask Rabbi Zucker, David told me this morning, I went to ask Rabbi Zucker what he thought about that. I asked him the question before I told him what to get to. At first I asked him, what does he think? The Ramah just says, V'yesh mechallel. Yesh mechallel like the Rosh. The Ramah doesn't, the Mechallel brings the sheets of most Rishonim l'hachmir, and then the Ramah says, V'yesh mechallel like the Rosh. So he says, Yesh mechallel. Probably sounds like he's leaning to be makel. Doesn't sound like he necessarily for sure says that, but for sure when you need to, he would say that, maybe even all the time. So then I said to him, that's what he said. So the Ramah says Yesh mechallel, that's okay. So then I said, okay, now I'll tell you what the shayla is going to get to. Okay, now after I answered the theoretical, what would you say if the Ramah passing like the sheet of a rush? Yesh mechallel. So I told him the cheshbon. I told him like 3 minutes. He's really fast. So I told him, and he says, yeah, there's what to think about. There's what to think about. That again, think what we're saying over here. Let's say the person to Mechallelei Shabbos, he has a din of a ger toshav, and the Ramah said that the ger toshav who touches not if he has his own wine. That's what Yossi. Many of the people who talked about the wine of a Mumar Mechallelei Shabbos. Some of them are maramas that can touching also. But if he just touched my wine, which again, that's the shayla for us. His wine is going to be assur anyhow, because his wine, who knows which guy might have touched it. But the shayla is always to get to when he touches my wine. That's when the shayla comes up. I have bottles, and I didn't realize that the wine wasn't sealed, and the person came to ask me Mechallelei Shabbos, or I had a guest at my table. It's always to get to my wine.
And he's drinking wine, and the wine in his cup.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question if he drinks his wine. That's a fair question. But if he touches, a should clear. Okay, if it's his wine or it's my wine. But if most of the situations we're going to have is when he touches my wine. Okay, so we have a possibility to say that if he touches my wine, Ken's either that should be even with